saying, I'd meet other gay people and they would say, they would have their stories about how they were beaten up and they were thrown. One guy was stabbed up by people in his village, and one guy was stoned, and people were beaten by their entire families. And they were like, everyone's talking in this room, and I'm just sitting there, and they're like, well, Kirk, now we get to you. And I was just like, what? And they're like, well, your story. I said, well, this is my story. I had a fabulous life. Mm-hmm. And they're like, but you weren't beaten up, you weren't threatened, I never had that.
But Kirk, let's face it, you're not a small guy, you're not a tiny guy, you're not a Pee-wee Horman. So who would dare charge you?
But you know what it is? Is that some of these men, some of these people that I knew were bigger than I was. Mm-hmm. And so for them to be attacked and to be stabbed and to be ridiculed, and to me broke my heart because I didn't know that. That's not the.
So why do you think you were spared?
That's not the Caribbean that I know. Mm. And even now as an adult, when I go to Caribbean islands and I visit people, the people who are supposedly homophobic are the people that have conversations with me, and we talk, and my gay friends who they chastise and know of, they would look at me at the end of my conversation with these other people and say, I cannot believe that person just spoke to you. I am just me. I don't pretend to be anything else. I don't hide anything of my personality or who I am. Being gay for me is just a small facet of what makes Kirk Kirk. Mm-hmm. And if someone's going to judge me based on that and say, oh, I don't like him because he's gay, then you're missing out on an amazing person who would maybe able to give you some advice, maybe able to, whatever it is. So when you judge someone based on their economic status, the color of their skin, the sexual orientation, the texture of their hair, you're not looking at the core of who that person is. And people tend to miss out.
Have you always known your sexuality, or was it a later realization?
No, I've always known exactly who I was. Mm-hmm. Anyone who knows me from childhood, Michelle Ryan will tell you, she knows well. Mm-hmm. Anyone who's known me from my childhood will tell you that I've always been who I am. I've always known. Mm-hmm. I've never put it as, I've never hid it. I've just always been me.
This question I'm about to ask you, I'm hoping, because I think in life that love is what is most important, and we should all be inclusive. I'm hoping that one day this type of question should not be asked, but this is the reality of the time in which we live. How were you always comfortable around your family and friends? Were you always so?
Always. Mm-hmm. There's certain members of my family who don't care for me because of that, because of the way they think, because of, the Caribbean disposition of, you can't be friends with this person. And that's fine. Mm-hmm. A long time ago, I made a decision that if you don't like me for one thing, you can't like me for nothing. Mm-hmm. And I good.
So, Kirk, where did this confidence, this strength come from? Your mother?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. My mother was extremely confident, and she said to me, anything you want in this life, you go after it. Don't let nobody hold you back. No family, no brother, no mother, no man, no woman, nobody. If you want something, she said, don't make anyone make you feel inferior. She said, the only person who can make you feel unimportant is yourself. And if you never, I used to have this thing when I was little. I say, oh, he good looking, eh? And I said, I know. And people would be like, oh God, you fully yourself, eh? No. My grandmother used to say to me, she said, Kirk, if you don't tell yourself you're worth it, if you don't tell yourself you're good looking, nobody ever will. And it's true.
What do you hope that your attitude, your disposition, what do you hope is the message to other young gay and lesbian people in the Caribbean who may not have had the kind of support or felt empowered as you were growing up, but might still be hiding, might still be struggling with fears and so on? What do you hope? What is the message you hope that they will get from you?
I believe that my attitude is not necessarily gay, straight. It's across the board, because you have straight people who feel inferior. Mm-hmm. You have bisexual people, whoever, older people, younger people, who feel I'm not good enough. You are good enough. You are as good as you give. And if you feel in your heart that you deserve it, then you do. And if you feel that you don't, then you don't. And that is the reality. I've come from a very supportive family on both sides of the fence. My brother Raymond, whom I love so much, and he's watching, is my only brother. And my brother, I remember when I told my brother I was gay, I was 22, and I called him. He called me. I had just gotten over chickenpox, whom my sister Gwen, my older sister, was nursing me back to health, and she's truly one of my best friends. And he called and he said, "You okay?" I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." I said, "I have something to tell you." And he said, "What?" I said, "When you come home, I'll tell you." He was in the army at the time. He was stationed he was in the Philippines at that point. And we hang up the phone. And he called back. He said, "What do you want to tell me? I'm not waiting until I come home. Tell me now." And I said, "I'm gay." And there was this awkward moment of silence. And then he broke it. He said, "So why are you quiet?" And I said, "Because I'm waiting for you to air your disappointment." He said, "There's not one thing that you will ever do or ever have done that I'll be disappointed." He said, "You are my baby brother, and no matter what, I will always love you." I have no words for that.
Neither do I.
And
Wow.
my brother will be walking down the street, and my brother will hold my hand. He hugged me up. He is my biggest cheerleader.
Awesome. Let me go to the chat room for a second. Ade said, "The crazy actors, LOL." Michelle Morgan, "I would love for you to launch your line of makeup and fashion. Do you ever think about such a venture? Let's call it simply KCD." Yeah. And Karen G said, "Kirk, I had the pleasure of meeting you via Sonia. Your charm and warmth come out instantly. Would you say a couple of things that women of color should do for their daily makeup and skincare to shine?"
I say find a good scrub, a good moisturizer. A night regimen is always good, like an oil, an essential oil. And I would say go to Kiehl's. Kiehl's is I love Kiehl's to death. I've been using them forever, and they've never disappointed me. As to makeup, I would say find a brand that you feel comfortable with. I mean, again, Bare Minerals, MAC Cosmetics, or Makeup Forever are the three that I really go between now. If you are not a makeup wearer, I would say go with Bare Minerals because it's lightweight, it's easy to wear, it corrects any, it's just easy. It just looks like you're wearing nothing. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Ade said, "Ask him his zodiac sign."
I'm a Taurus, and Ade and we're both born in the year of the dragon, 10 years apart, and we're born in the same day.
Wow. Kelly said, your great personality. What you see is what you get. Great interview. I like." Karen G said, "A sexual preference in life is your beeswax. People need to get real and understand theirs. Confidence is so sexy, so little for them." Who are some Caribbean designers you admire?
I love Robert Young of the Cloth.
Who's this?
Robert Young of the Cloth.
Robert Young. Mm-hmm.
Brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
There is a woman, her name is Heather Jones, who does hand-painted silks. Oh my God, amazing. There's this woman from Antigua. She's bald, very fashionable. She's Vincentian born, living in Antigua. She lived in Europe for many years. And I cannot remember her name. But if I see her today, I will run to her because I think she's the most dynamic Caribbean woman I've ever met. It is a Sonia Noel on crack.
Really?
Is the best. She is on hyperdrive.
Sonia Noel on crack.
Yes,
that's a lot.
And I would love for Sonia to meet her because I think they're two sides of the same coin.
Wow. I want to take a break now, but let me leave you with this. Tell us about your involvement with the Emily Humanitarian Foundation that supports surgery for children in underdeveloped countries. All right?
Okay.
And it was just a wonderful experience.
I had a great time. I always have a great time when I come here. There was 1 week when I came here 3 times.
Very simple, good food, good friends, amazing staff. I can't complain.
We are back with Kirk, Cambridge Del Peche. Kirk, your involvement. Tell us about your involvement with the Emily Humanitarian
The
Foundation.
Emily Humanitarian Foundation was started by David Liu, who is the husband. He's a doctor, a heart surgeon. His wife is Moana Siriana Liu, who is a Martinican-born superstar in Paris. They just had a son. And he started this foundation to give back to third world countries. And so I met them when I was doing The Wiz in 2009, I believe. I met him through his wife. And I introduced him to Tashina Arnold and a bunch of other celebrities that was working on the show. And we hang out, and we just literally, at the end of it, I remember him saying to me one day, he said, I would like you to be a part of my organization. And I said, why? He said, because you bring something dynamic. You would bring something dynamic to it. And I thought it was an honor. So I've been around them for a good 5 or 6 years now. And they do great things in third world countries, and they're now expanding into other things. So there's now something called the Heart Fund, and that's to pay for heart surgeries. The Emily Foundation would do things like help children correct cleft lips and things. So David would fly over and he would do these surgeries for free.
How does one get in touch with them?
The organization has a website, so you can go to the emilyhumanitarian.org, and there's the Heart Fund. If you Google any of them, they'll come up.
Emily Humanitarian Foundation.
If you Google it, it'll come up, and you contact them and say, this is whoever I am, and I know children here, there, and they would put it into the roster and see what they could do. So it's a great thing.
So I know you mentioned your love for children. You got involved. Was that partly of why you got involved?
A few years ago, when I was a little bit younger, I started volunteering. I had lost a lot of friends to HIV, predominantly women, female friends of mine, and a few male friends. And I started volunteering at a hospital in the pediatric AIDS department, and I got really close to the little child. He was maybe 3, but really smart for his age. And I think because his lifespan was going to be so short, his maturity just blossomed. And I remember one evening I left, put him to bed, and the next afternoon when I came back, he was gone. He was dead. And then I said, I'm never working with children again. I'm never getting close to a child again. And then as time progressed, I started being around my nephew, and my cousin has 2 twins, and whom I'm legally a third parent to. And I started being around them, and I started realizing, oh my God, I love children. So when I was asked to be a part of the organization, I quickly jumped at it. Because, too, my mother loved children. My mother did everything she could to help, especially poor children. So for me, it's a legacy that I am, by design, I'm supposed to do.
You mentioned your mom just now, and I just have a weakness and a closeness to mothers. When you think about your mother, what comes to mind?
I think of just joy. My mother made me very happy, and she was my best friend. We were really close. She never treated me as a child. She always treated me as a young man. That's what she would always call me. And one of the blessings that I was able to do after my mother died, when my mother died, I was 14. And I was told that my mother's ashes were buried so to keep us from hurting anymore or crying. Later on, I found out that my mother's ashes was told to the funeral director that they were to take the ashes and throw them in the gutter, not bury them, by my mother's family. And when I was about 21, my sister Kimala and I went I was walking along the street one night, and I almost broke my ankle on a street that I've walked a million times. So I held onto this wall, and the gentleman across on the other side of the wall, his name is Sonny. Sonny said, "Kirk, is that you?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Oh, what happened?" I said, "Boy, I almost broke my ankle." So the lady sitting there, she said, "Kirk." She said, "What's your mother's last name?" I said, "Your mother's name?" I said, "Her name is Kathleen Cambridge." She says, "Come up to the funeral home tomorrow." So I went home quickly and I called my younger sister, Kimberly, and I said, "Hey, we need to go up to the funeral home tomorrow." She said, "Okay." So she comes and she meets me, we go up. And this is just about the time I'm about to move to the States, literally days before. My sister and I go to the funeral home, and the guy says, "Come into my office." And he tells us the story. And he presents us with my mother's urn. I cannot tell you, it was 6 or 7 years later, I cannot tell you the relief that I felt. Disappointment in my mother's family, choice to say what they said. And, but my mother used to say to me when I was little, "You will be the one to put me in a house." Always, my entire life. And my grandmother reminded me the day I brought the urn home, because I didn't tell her what was going on. I brought the urn. She said, "What is that?" I said, "It's my mother's ashes." She says, She said, "Kathleen, not easy." I said, "What happened?" She said, "Do you remember your mother telling you, growing up when you're little, that you will be the one to put her in a house?" I said, "Possibly." And she said, "Look now, 6 years after she died, you're going to put her to rest." And to me, it just speaks to the volume and the magnitude of the persona that was Kathleen Cambridge.
What did you learn about yourself during that experience?
I learned that I am more forgiving than I thought I would ever have been.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned that the 14-year-old boy who was called and told that his mother is dead at 10:30 at night, who had to wake up the next morning,